let's dig into a story you might think you know. It's about a negotiation in the desert over a well. But, just beneath the surface of this ancient pact, there's a hidden story. A story of miracles, secret missions, and what it really takes to build a legacy. And it all kicks off with a really powerful and, frankly, pretty shocking statement.
So, the whole thing starts with this. Now, you gotta understand, this is not just some friendly compliment. This is King Abimelech, a powerful king, saying this to Abraham, a guy who's basically a wandering nomad. No kingdom, no army, not even any land to his name. So why on earth would a king say this?
Because this isn't a conversation between equals, not in the way the world usually sees it. It's this moment of profound recognition. The king sees a power in Abraham that is way beyond military might. And when you realize you can't beat someone, you make a deal with them. This is high-stakes, ancient diplomacy.
Okay, so the scene is set. King Abimelech, and get this, he brings Eshel, the commander of his entire army, and they travel out to meet Abraham. They're not sending some low-level messenger, they're showing up in person. They've got a very specific proposal, and it is definitely not a short-term fix.
I mean, just look at the scope of this thing. Abimelech isn't just worried about today. He wants a non-aggression pact that covers not just Abraham, but his son and even his grandson. This is so much more than a treaty. He is trying to secure his entire dynasty's future against the divine power he sees in this one man.
So Abraham agrees. He's ready to swear an oath and seal his side of the deal. But hold on, this is not a one-sided negotiation. Abraham has some leverage and he is absolutely about to use it. Before anything is finalized, Abraham brings up a major issue of his own. And this is no small thing. We have to remember, out in the desert, water is everything. It's life, it's wealth, it's power, it is survival. A well that you dug with your own hands is your lifeline. Abraham is basically accusing the king's men of stealing his single most critical asset.
Abimelech's response here, it's a masterclass in plausible deniability. My servants? No way. I had absolutely no idea. Why is this the first I'm hearing of it? Whether he's telling the truth or not doesn't really matter. The dispute is now officially on the table, and it has to be settled right here and right now.
So they move on to finalize the treaty. There's an exchange of animals. That's a pretty standard part of making a pact back then. But then Abraham does something kind of weird. He separates 7 female lambs from the rest. The king asks him why, and Abraham says they're to serve as proof, as a witness, that he's the one who dug the well. But how?
And this moment is so important, the place gets its name from it. Beer means well, and sheva, well, it can mean 7, like the 7 lambs, but it also comes from the word shavua, which means oath. So the place becomes Beer-sheba, the well of the 7 and the well of the oath. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, so the treaty is signed, the well is secure. But that brings us right back to that huge question from the beginning. What made King Abimelech so desperate for this treaty in the first place? To answer that, we've got to turn to the great medieval commentator, Rashi, who is an absolute master at finding the story behind the story.
The biblical text itself just says, the king saw that God was with Abraham, but it doesn't give us the details. So what was the evidence? What had Abimelech actually witnessed that would make him approach a nomad with that much reverence and, let's be honest, fear?
Well, according to Rashi, Abimelech had been keeping a close eye on Abraham's resume, let's call it, and it was terrifying. First, he saw Abraham living right next door to Sodom and then just walking away completely unharmed from its divine fiery destruction. Then, he watched Abraham, with just a tiny private force, defeat the combined armies of 4 regional superpowers. I mean, who does that? And finally, there was the impossible story everyone was talking about. Abraham and Sarah having a miracle child when they were 190 years old. The point is, this was a man who seemed to defy nature, politics, and fate itself.
But Rashi doesn't just fill in the backstory. He peels back another layer, revealing a hidden meaning to the events of the treaty itself. This is where we get the story behind the story.
So let's get back to our little mystery. The text says the 7 lambs are proof, but come on, that doesn't really make any logical sense, does it? You can't just give someone a gift and say, see, this proves I own that thing you stole from me. It just doesn't add up. So what was really going on here?
Rashi explains that there was a local tradition about this dispute. The king's shepherds and Abraham's shepherds were arguing over who really dug the well. So they came up with a test. The well would belong to whoever the water rose up to greet. And guess what? When Abraham approached, the water miraculously rose up in the well, proving his ownership.
So you see, the 7 lambs weren't the proof. They were the witnesses to the real proof, the miracle.
And Rashi does the same thing with the story's final detail. The text says Abraham planted an eshel, which is a tamarisk tree. Okay? A nice, simple act. But Rashi says, hold on, eshel is also an acronym, a symbol for an inn, a place that provides food, drink, and lodging. Abraham didn't just plant a tree, he established an entire institution.
And this right here, this is where the whole story just clicks into place. The treaty wasn't the end goal for Abraham. No, securing his peace and his water rights was just the necessary first step so he could get on with his true life's work.
Rashi describes Abraham's incredible method. He would invite weary travelers into his inn and give them this amazing feast. And when they were full and happy and ready to thank him, he'd stop them. He'd say, "Don't thank me, thank the one who truly provided this meal." He turned a simple act of hospitality into a profound theological lesson.
And how long did he keep this mission up? This wasn't some short-term project. Based on a really close reading of the timeline in Genesis, Rashi calculates that Abraham ran this spiritual outreach center for 26 years. A quarter century, day in and day out, dedicated to this one purpose.
This is the heart of his message, recorded in the Talmud and cited by Rashi. He redirects all the gratitude, all the credit, away from himself and toward a universal creator God. Through a simple meal, he introduced the world to monotheism.
And that brings us to the big takeaway here. The story starts as a political contract over land and water. It's a negotiation. But for Abraham, that was just the beginning. The treaty was the foundation that he built something much more meaningful on, a mission to share his most profound beliefs with the world. And it leaves us with a question, right? When we make our own pacts and build our own relationships, are we just trying to secure our own well, or are we creating an opportunity to plant something that gives life to others?